On today's Locked On Senators MVP. Who was it for the Ottawa Senators in 23-24?
Probably a shorter list than Sens fans would want, but we narrowed it down to our top 3 candidates.
We'll get into all that. Plus, it is all playoffs all the time in the hockey world. We'll talk NHL, and it's a Belleville Sens playoff game day. That's all coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1031 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Wednesday, April 24th, and Pillzy, that intro made me a little sad because when's the last time you heard an Ottawa Senators crowd chant MVP for one of its own players' performances?
Probably Carl, right? Like that would have been the last time.
Alfie got it all the time. It was like a nightly thing. He would go in hard on a forecheck, knock someone on their ass, grab the puck, go to the net and score. Place would go wild. MVP chants would rain down. It would be like Alfie chants would like soak in to MVP chants. And then, yeah, you're right. Craig Anderson definitely got some as well. Erik Karlsson, as you mentioned. But man, I miss those. Feels like every playoff team has a player they can announce as the MVP, whereas we're going through the numbers and being like, every candidate for this last year's team, they all had pretty bad stretches within the season.
Yeah, for the most part. And some guys, picked up slack where other guys fell and things like that. But really, we could try to get galaxy brain about this discussion, Ross, and come up with some fun, interesting players to throw in the mix here. But for all intensive purposes, there's really only 3 players, in my opinion, that could be considered for the MVP for this season.
Well, what would be your very creative, fun name? Throw me a fun name first.
I tried. I tried to be like, okay, I want to have a different spin on the typical narrative of the Ottawa Senators, try to bring something interesting to the table. But I mean, maybe a fun one could be Batherson. He had a really good year, but MVP like for the Ottawa Senators, probably not.
The chant for Batherson would be career year. Career year. Not quite MVP level, but hey, hit the goals and points plateau that he's ever hit. So that's a good answer. And I know Nick Spence, our guy's already yelling, Zub, who tied for all defenseman lead in even strength points, along with being your prototypical shutdown defenseman, doing what he does on the back end. But I almost think the real star of this discussion, and it's not for a good reason, is the one player that was in our top 4 for most valuable going into the season that wasn't even really in contention here. And that's Tim Stützle, who we know battled injuries all season, but we didn't even consider him. Only 18 goals, still second on the team in points, but it just felt like he obviously didn't take a step forward this year, but he wasn't even really in the discussion of top 3 MVPs on this team.
Yeah, Ross, I didn't even consider him really. Like, even as a fun pick, like I would put Batherson over Stützle. Ross, even I would put another guy over Stützle, and this is very unconventional, but
Rourke Chartier?
No, I do love Rourke Chartier though. Shane Pinto Sure, he misses 41 games due to the gambling suspension. We don't need to get into that. We've been through that. So you can't really judge him on the 41 games he wasn't able to play. But the 41 games that he does play, 27 points in 41 games. So math guy, projection, you just double that. He would be projected to have 54 points in an 82-game season. And when he was a part of this team, they were a lot better than when he wasn't a part of this team. And that's usually the core of an MVP discussion, right? Like, who's the most valuable player to your team? Not the best player, not the most points, not the biggest contract, etc. It's when this guy is on your team, is he bringing more value than other guys? And I feel like Shane Pinto isn't the guy, but he deserves to be in the discussion here, because in the half season he was pretty damn impressive, especially classic Shane Pinto story. Going up and down the lineup, he was a first-line center, a second-line center, and a third-line center all in that half season.
Where do you think he fits in next year on the depth chart? Because we know Josh Norris expected to be back for training camp, and it's like, I almost keep Pinto as the number 2 center. I like him in that spot. He makes the players around him better.
It's such a tough discussion, Ross, because for me, he's your...
Well, he also doesn't have a contract.
Well, yeah, let's start with that first. Good call. But for me, he's your 2B centerman. Like, in a ideal world, I still want Josh Norris as that second-line center. When he's healthy, the shot, when he's clicking, he is a second-line center potential. And then Shane Pinto as that third-line guy, the matchups are better for him. Shane Pinto can play in a top 2 role, but it's not ideal for him, whereas you get him in that third center spot, and I think it's just perfect, especially Ross. I'm envisioning a third line of Ridley Gregg, Shane Pinto, and Matthew Joseph. You got grit, grind, speed, two-way players there, so I think that's a third line that could really work. I like the idea of sheltering Norris a little bit on the third line, but I just think the roster lines up nicely if you have your center depth of Timmy, Josh, Shane.
We'll have more of this type of discussion over the next couple weeks on Locked On Senators. We will have our exit interviews that we did last year, where we'll go through player by player on the roster and have a season in review. And then we'll set up who the pending UFAs are, should any of them be back. But those discussions can be on the way to the NHL draft and free agency, the flipping of the NHL calendar, where we'll get a ton of roster movement, we believe, for the Ottawa Senators. But today's show, it's MVPs and it's playoffs. And on the other side, we will count down our top 3 Ottawa Senators MVP options for this past season. And we'll put in the description below on YouTube a poll to vote. We want to know who your Ottawa Senators MVP is. And what we've seen from these teams in the National Hockey League playoffs, are the Senators even close? Those discussions are next, and it's a Belleville Sens game day. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Guys, I'm making the road trip from the Blue Mountains all the way to Belleville, so I got to make sure my truck is ready to go, and the way to do that is to go to eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and even level it up to peak performance. They got superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP, maybe an Ottawa Senators MVP, and bring home that W. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel has your place to bet every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Yeah, I lost last night. I'm man enough to admit it. I had Nemesnikov anytime goal scorer at plus 500, and I had the Jets to win as home dogs at plus 110. That was a failure, but tonight I'm back in the mix on FanDuel, and I'm going with a little parlay action tonight. Can I beat Pillsy's parlay of the day? Time will tell. I'm going with the Edmonton Oilers at home, and I'm going with the Boston Bruins on the road. So a 2-game parlay. I'm putting in 10 to win 20 plus 206. I'm in at FanDuel, and you can be too. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, Pillsy, we'll get to the playoffs in due time. I'm almost sad to talk about the NHL playoffs because I'm so jealous the Ottawa Senators just aren't in the mix. But, Pillsy, we've got a headline of the week winner. Headline of the week winner. We know GMs around the National Hockey League are talking offseason. What changes need to be made? And this one from Anaheim Ducks GM Pat Verbeek is just awesome. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying he's not alone. Verbeek, Ducks targeting a top 6 forward and a top 4 defenseman this summer.
That's what the Sens are doing.
They go on to say actually a right shot defenseman and a right shot forward. That has people believing that they might be stealing Artem Levshunov from the Ottawa Senators in the NHL draft if the lottery odds don't go the Sens' way.
Yeah, I think the Ducks are probably going to go for a defenseman, especially after adding Cutter Gauthier to the mix, trading away. I'm blanking on his name.
Jamie Drysdale.
Jamie Drysdale, yes. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way the Ducks go there.
They've also got the not reigning, I guess, anymore because it was 2 seasons ago, but they had all 3 Canadian Hockey League Defensemen of the Year. They had the WHL with Zellweger. They had the QMJHL with Tristan Luneau, shout out to Gatineau Olympique, and they had the OHL's Defenseman of the Year as well. And that was Pavel Minchikov, shout out Ottawa 67s. Whoa. Yep. 67s. Yeah, so they're loaded in terms of some sort of depth on the back end, but that's a great headline. Shout out Pat Verbeek, wanting to make his last place team better. I guess they're not even last place in their own division because of the San Jose Sharks swimming deep down under. But the Ottawa Senators could probably use those same additions as well. All right, Pillsy, we've built the suspense. Who is your MVP from this past season?
Well, should we lay out our 3 finalists first, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's count up. So at number 3, or do we do your nominees for Ottawa Senators 2023 MVP in alphabetical order? Number 28, Claude Giroux. We've got number 85, Jake Sanderson. And number 7, Brady Tkachuk. That pause initially was to figure out what was first, S or T in the alphabet.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
And I think we nailed these 3 choices. Look, you already mentioned some honorable mentions. I'll just quickly sum them up. You've got Drake Batherson as kind of, and this is a ways down. Drake Batherson, Shane Pinto would be the next 2. I really liked Artem Zub's game. Who doesn't? Just the way he's able to stabilize there. Those would be kind of the 3 afterthoughts. But these are the 3 candidates.
Yep.
Who's number 3 for you?
Number 3 for me is Claude Giroux. I really think Claude Giroux had consistent stretches in the season, Ross, but it did feel like at the end of the season here, he kind of fell off a little bit. Now, maybe that's tied at the hip with the production of Tim Stützle and Tim Stützle not being available, as those 2 played a lot of minutes together. So I'm sure that is a fair argument to have something to do with it. And probably Claude has just had a bit of losing season fatigue, which I can't really blame him for, as this has not been what he signed up for. He thought he was getting out of Philly, a rebuilding situation, to come to Ottawa, a team that's going to take the next steps. In fact, the reverse has happened. Philly has made the next steps, and they were playing meaningful games and almost made the playoffs, and Ottawa has been out of it, so it's been tough for Claude, but this guy is a consummate professional. The face-off numbers are always strong for Claude Giroux. He's a veteran leader that this team needs, and look, he still had another great season for a guy of his age. In 82 games, played all 82. You love to see that. Our only MVP finalist that did that, Ross.
Well, Brady was close. Brady missed one game.
That's not full 82. And Claude Giroux ends up with 64 points in 82 games. So a solid season for Claude Giroux. Nonetheless, not the #1 MVP for this team.
The splits for Claude Giroux's season was not ideal as the team went. He kind of went. Really good start, 9 points in 8 games in the month of October. Was solid through the middle of the season as well. Had a stretch through December and January where he had 26 points in 30 games, but the end of the season didn't go his way. He finishes the year, and again, plus minus ain't everything, but when in the last 2 months of the season, you go minus 13 and you finish the year minus 14, I think that kind of exemplifies that maybe things weren't bouncing the way you'd like towards the end of the season. A lot of that, though, I mean, Timmy's injury problem at the end, he misses the last handful of games. I did like that Claude Giroux was attached at the hip with Tim Stützle all season. I think it helped him in the faceoff dot. Timmy saying it was a wrist issue early on in the season that kind of lingered. So having him as a helper, but they needed that extra body. And once Tarasenko was traded, not that they all played together, but just the depth that created up front. Brady was on their line at times earlier on in the season. You had more leeway. I just would have liked to have seen them mix it up. Not that Jacques Martin had many options, right? And that's the problem. They didn't have the depth options this year because Mathieu Joseph's game also plummeted. Mathieu Joseph had 1 goal in the last 30 games this year, give or take. Like that to me was an opportunity where they could have put Giroux and Stützle on a different line or mixed that, but they kept it and it didn't work throughout the end of the season. But overall, Giroux, another successful season in Ottawa. The guy is ageless. I'm expecting more of the same next season. He goes from 79 to 64 points. I'll go out there right now and say he'll be within that range next year as well.
Yeah, I think somewhere around 70 points is a good spot to have Claude Giroux, because it's not like at the end of the season, Ross, you're like, man, Claude looks old out there, or he's slow, or he doesn't have it anymore, or anything like that. It was the product of being on screenshot-worthy rosters for the last 15 games. Like, what I mean by that is the rosters are so hilariously bad that it's worth screenshotting to go back and laugh at later, and Claude Giroux has to find a way to produce like that. Not easy.
It was unfortunate. A far cry from the ending to his season 1 year ago, where he hit the 1,000-point mark in that third last game, had a huge finish to the season and just was awesome all around. But the way he plays, not worried about him slowing down. It's all about smarts and playmaking.
Especially, Ross, if he's with Tony Greco again this offseason, which I'm going to assume he will be.
Oh, yeah. Will he ever? So Claude Giroux comes in at number 3 on our list of Ottawa Senators MVPs. I think that was also kind of a given. This is where it gets tough for me. I truly believe there's a case to be made for both Sanderson and Tkachuk, the 2 highest drafted players on this Ottawa Senators roster, albeit 2 of the younger players as well. Jake Sanderson is still 21 years old, Pillzy. That
on his entry-level deal still.
Amazing that he was able to be as consistent as he was this season, but he comes in at number 2 on our list of Ottawa Senators MVPs. Like, a truly remarkable season for Jake Sanderson. Didn't have the offensive numbers that were like a huge step above, but obviously made up for it on the defensive side of the puck. Still set career highs, had 6 more points than last year, played 2 more games, only missed 3 all year, hits double-digit goals, still doesn't take any penalties. He took 9 minor penalties this year, plus the fight with Matthew Tkachuk. He is just scratching the surface, and here's my hot take here, Pillsy. He will be a Senators season MVP at least once, more likely multiple times before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Ross. Jake Sanderson comes in at number 2 for me as well. Look, what can you say about Jake Sanderson? without emphasizing the consistency of his game. Now, maybe you'd like to see a couple more highs, but the thing is, you don't see very many lows with Jake Sanderson. Like, you're going to get a pretty damn consistent product with him. And the key with consistency for a sophomore defenseman is this guy's going up against every other opponent's top matchups. Like, he's going up against the top lines, the other team's top defense pairs. Him and Artem Zub have excelled as a shutdown pair. The only good thing about this back end, really, for the Ottawa Senators this season has been that we found a shutdown pair, and Jake Sanderson has a partner that he likes to play with, and they're effective playing together. And Jake Sanderson's averaging like, how much? 23 minutes, 13 seconds. That feels low to me. I feel like he's usually in the 25-minute mark for most games, especially if they're close games and it's coming down to the wire at the end of the third. His skating is so smooth. He's just so smart. It's a combination of those little things that he does right over and over and over and over and over again that make him such a good player, more so than looking at his highlight reel goals or massive impact plays. The thing with Jake Sanderson is he stops a lot of those plays before they get to a point where he has to make a highlight reel defensive play, or he's forced to do something great. So Jake Sanderson, so much more is yet to come here. He's about to start his massive contract next season, and I can't wait to be able to watch more of number 85 on this team.
And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, I pulled up the Money Puck expected goals percentage leaders among all defensive pairs this season and among defensive pairs that played more than 800 minutes together. So what a sample size. These are guys who have played a majority of the year together. Sanderson Zub ranked 6th in expected goals percentage, meaning that when they're on the ice, the puck is in the offensive end and the Senators are getting 55% of the chances within the game. The only pairs that are ahead of them, to put it in perspective too, a pair that's tied with them, Devon Taves and Cale Makar. Like, that's the type of company that they're keeping. 2 pairs on the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, they throw everything at the net. They're also a successful team, so they find their way up these rankings often, but still great defensemen. The leaders at 62.8%, Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard, Gavrikov and Matt Roy also on this list in the top 5. So that is elite company to be in. It's the only pair that's on a non-playoff team in the top 10 outside of Marcus Pettersson and, oh yeah, that guy Erik Karlsson. So you look at it from that standpoint, Pillzy, and they're just getting ready. And I was saying going into the offseason, that's the one thing on this whole roster in terms of combinations that I'm lock, key, hieroglyphics, put it in there, chisel it into stone, because Artem Zub and Jake Sanderson should never be apart when they're both in the lineup. They complement each other's game perfect. And I think Zub's also the type of defenseman, Pillsy, that's going to allow Jake Sanderson to reach his offensive ceiling, because he's not going to be looking over his shoulder and trying to cover defensively for his partner as much as he would have to with, say, a Thomas Chabot or Jacob Chychrun, a more offensive-minded defenseman.
Yeah, and we saw Jake Sanderson's offensive abilities here. Sure, 10 goals doesn't fly off the page to you, but 10 goals as a sophomore defenseman is pretty impressive. And the fact that Jake Sanderson created a lot more offense with his shot, not necessarily goals, but tips, deflections, rebounds. That was a really big part of the Ottawa Senators offense, is having Jake Sanderson send it to the net and having guys like Brady in the right spot to screen, tip, deflect, or get rebounds. So that's been a big improvement for Sanderson as well.
And people who are watching the playoffs, most notably this Jets versus Avalanche series, will show that Cale Makar's had 3 goals, I think, created off of just that, being able to find seams from far out. But whether it goes straight in or he gets sticks on it in front, it's a huge attribute that helps create offense. Jake Sanderson with 26 more shots on goal this year than last year, as well as doubling his shooting percentage. So another great sign of things to come for Jake Sanderson. I mentioned the NHL playoffs, more on that after the break. And well, the spoilers are already out in full force. Brady Tkachuk is your Ottawa Senators MVP. And after the break, we'll explain just why. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Look, whether you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? Well, you need Indeed, because Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. Do it all with Indeed. Sit back and relax, because Indeed does the hard hiring work for you. Sponsor a job, and they'll match you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description right when you post. With Indeed, you can start hiring fast. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you got to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends with the Sleeper app. Sleeper is the place we go when we want to get our fantasy fix. Regardless of the fact the Senators were brutal this year, I want to remind you that you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your money in cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. What players would I pick this week? I'm always looking at my big time favorites in the first round. I'm looking at Artemi Panarin. I'm looking at Connor McDavid. 5 assists. Is that good? You can also pick studs like Nathan McKinnon. I know. Cale Makar and more to record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. Entries can be made in under a minute. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of these stats. So use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL, LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms, reviews for details and locational availability. All right, Pillzy. Don't think we forgot it's a Belleville Sens playoff game day. Pillzy's packing up the car, going on the road down to Belleville, where he's going to cheer on the boys against the Toronto Marlies. Plenty of action these next few days because it's a best-of-3 series tonight in Belleville, the friendly city. Get your tickets, fill the barn. It's an easy drive from Ottawa. Just under 3 hours. Just get there. Have a good time. It's a nice Wednesday night to have a time. Pillsy's driving right back after. Quick in and out. You can be home by midnight, tucked into bed after watching the Belleville Sens do their thing. Friday, the game is in Toronto at the Horse Barn? What do they call it there? Coca-Cola Coliseum? That's where they keep the horses, though. It always smells wild around there.
And they do a massive farm show there, too. It's hilarious being a farm boy like myself in the city, and you're just seeing tractors and horses and hay and straw bales everywhere. Like, what's going on here? That's where the Toronto Marlies play.
Okay. We'll get to that after. Hopefully a 1-0 series lead. First time Belleville's playing a home playoff game where they aren't facing elimination in that game. So that'll be nice for the faithful going to see the game. If you see Pillsy, say hi. Where are you at in the rink?
I'll be at section 104. I bought a lonely aisle seat, so I'm ready to roll.
Awesome. Enjoy that tonight. We'll have a boots on the ground video after the game, and then we will get all the insight later on this week. Also, Mark Mathot, we mentioned yesterday, he was going to be on today's show. Unfortunately, woke up not feeling the best. He will make it up. He told us he will be twice as entertaining the next time he joins us. But Pillsy, we are 30 minutes into the show, and we haven't told the people why Brady Tkachuk is the MVP.
Brady Tkachuk is the MVP because he embodies everything you hope an Ottawa Senators player can do for his team. He does not give up. He drags this team into the battle with him. He puts up points, leading the Ottawa Senators in points. Thank you very much. 81 games, 74 points, 37 assists, 37 goals. You love to see that. The hits are up there. The shots are up there. And unlike some other players, Ross, Brady Tkachuk did not slow down as the season went on. In fact, in his last 18 games, so I'm looking at March 16th to the rest of the end of the season, in 18 games, he had 22 points, 10 goals, 12 assists, 2 game winners in that stretch as well. So Brady Tkachuk averaging around 20 minutes per game in that stretch. Like, this guy, even though the team was out of it, we were kind of begging for the season to be done so we didn't have to watch this anymore. He still gave Sens fans a reason to be proud. And for that reason, Brady Tkachuk, the captain, is your 2023-2024 Ottawa Senators MVP.
Set a career high with 37 goals this season, beating 35 that he set last year. A gamer down the stretch, a gamer against rivalry teams, 3 goals in 4 games against Detroit, point per game there. 3 goals in 3 games, 5 points against Montreal, including a huge game to send the home fans happy to finish the season. 9 points, 5 goals in 4 games against Tampa. This guy brings it against the Atlantic Division. Just hope he figures it out like the team does against the Western Conference. For some reason, that was the team's that was the team's Achilles heel this season, though, for the Ottawa Sens. Dude, in 49 games against the Eastern Conference, Brady Tkachuk had 52 points, 31 goals. In 32 games against the West, Brady had 6 goals in 32 games, 22 points in 32 games. So that's one thing that I don't know if that's just like somebody was plugging away at a voodoo doll or what was going on, but it can't happen next year. The whole team I'm talking about, they need to figure it out, not only in the Western Conference, 14-1 against the West, in the West, but even overall, they've got to figure that out. But in terms of Brady being a gamer, man, like he to me is the perfect leader for this team. I know some fans would think that, hey, when they needed him this year, that was probably his quiet portion of the season where he wasn't at his best. I think in early December, basically leading up to DJ Smith getting fired, he was having a bit of a slump there. But man, what he did, even to drag this team back into not even the race, but to drag themselves into some sort of relevance in January where he's a point per game player, there's a lot to be said about surrounding him with more talent. I think instead of pointing the finger at the leader of this team, I think this summer should be about surrounding him with the right talent, because he's the only player who's even close to league leaders in any category, right? Like, he finished 4th in the league in shots on goal. He finished 5th? I'm pulling up right now. 3rd in the league in hits. And he's the only guy on the top 5 who also puts up points with his hits as well. He's a unicorn type player, a moose, as Josh Norris's dad calls him. And he's the MVP of this end season. And I'll listen to arguments about Jake Sanderson, but I bet you Jake Sanderson would tell you that Brady Tkachuk's the MVP of this team, the leader, the guy everybody follows. And he too is just entering the prime of his career. He'll be 25 years old right before training camp.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Ross. And the one thing I was looking at is he really figured out, or at least reined himself in when it came to the fighting this year as well, right? Like, I'm on Hockey Fights right now, and sure, he still finishes the year with 6 fights here, but his last fight of the year was
it the one against the Rangers?
Yeah, against Mackey. I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And that was in January, Ross.
Yeah.
So after January, he kind of settled down.
He had a few hold me backs though after.
Big time, but that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. Especially, Ross, you want to see some of these fights. Like, I don't mind seeing, like, Rasmussen up against Detroit, Tuck up against a Buffalo, and then
I forgot about that fight.
Yeah, and then Brendan Dillon, that's a good tilt.
And that one was because he absolutely rattled a Jet on the boards, and Dillon's like, give me one. So I get that. And that was early in the game too. It's the ones that are in bad moments where it's like, dude, can we do this later?
Yeah, or just not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one area where we wanted to see Brady Tkachuk, I don't want to say be more emotionally mature. That's because that's not necessarily it, but you got to pick your spots. Let's just say that he got better at picking his spots.
I don't know if there's anything more really to say on that. I'm just seeing on Twitter at Sens Central where we put up the poll. People are writing
Show the results of the polls, Ross. Pull that up for the people.
Okay, I will. So who was the Ottawa Senators MVP this season? We just asked on Twitter at Sens Central. Again, I'm going to put the link to that poll in the description of this video on YouTube, or you can just find us at Sens Central on Twitter. Other 3%, all the write-ins so far are for Jacques Martin and what he did to put this team on the right path. I don't know if that's good or bad, though, Pillsy.
Yeah, because it's not like Jacques Martin is a Jack Adams candidate here. But, Ross, it is comforting to know that the citizens reflect what our thoughts were as well. Brady, Jake, Claude, that's the order.
Some people, though, saying that it's a bit of recency bias on Brady Tkachuk because he did finish the season so strong.
Sure, that's fine, but like it's not like he was missing for parts of the season here either, and he led the team in points. Like I don't know. I think there's less arguments bring Brady down than there is arguments to put Jake, Claude, Jacques Martin, Batherson, any of those guys above him. So I feel very comfortable saying that Brady is this year's MVP.
Hopefully next year it's playoffs for this entire team. I mean, come on. Like, these guys need it. Brady's already 25 years old. He's going into year 7 of his NHL career.
6 years, and he's done nothing.
As he put it, he's done absolutely nothing. And now he has to watch his brother go up 2-0 in the series. Great screen from Matthew Tkachuk in front of the net. Carter Verhaeghe gets his 5th career Stanley Cup overtime game-winning goal. So that's huge for them. But Pillsy, some sources out of Florida on Twitter saying that Sam Bennett is out long-term after his injury last night. That's a huge hole for them to fill.
Especially Sam Bennett's a perfect playoff guy. Just a greasy little rat that pisses everyone off, but also can contribute offensively. I think he blocked a shot, Ross. A shot hit him when he was facing the other way, and I'm not sure where it got him, but he left after that, and that is going to be a big loss for those Panthers.
So they're up 2-0 in their series over the Lightning. We'd be remiss not to mention last night what a goalie duel between both those guys, Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky. Everybody's catching on, rightfully so, to Bobrovsky's backhand save where he didn't even – that was eyes on the back of your head-esque for him. And cat-like reflexes, Bobrovsky makes a huge backhand glove save. So that was ridiculous in that game. They get the overtime win, as we mentioned, over Tampa, and they're up 2-0. A few other series are up 2-0 as well. Carolina's up 2-0 over the New York Islanders. That seems like it's all but over already. Islanders, they're going to their bag of tricks. They've only got this one card to play, so why not? Ilya Sorokin will start in goal for them tonight as the series shifts to Long Island. And then we've got the New York Rangers up 2-0 over the Washington Capitals. Those are the 2-0 series. Pillsy, out of those three, Florida, Rangers, Hurricanes, who will be the first to advance? Take away what day the games are on, but in the least amount of games.
It's going to be the New York Rangers.
The Caps made it interesting last night, though. They got it to within 1 with time left.
Yep, they certainly made it interesting. You got to give them a lot of props there, and maybe they'll get a big boost by going back to their nation's capital. Not our nation's capital, their nation's capital. But I just, I don't see it, Ross. Unfortunately, I don't know how they're going to get it done up against the New York Rangers here.
On the West side, a pair of series are tied at 1 that involve Canadian teams. The Jets and Avalanche have played some entertaining hockey. The Vancouver Canucks had to deal with the blow that Thatcher Demko is out. Did you see this? The Vancouver faithful trying to pump up Casey DeSmith. And as they're chanting, "Let's go, Casey," the puck goes in the net.
But Ross, you're burying the lead. The first shot of the game.
Oh, wait. It's not normal that goalies let in the first shot or two?
Yeah. Seriously, eh? So, Ross, I was the big, all right, everybody, calm down about the Thatcher Demko thing. It's not going to be a big deal. Casey DeSmith allows 4 goals on 16, or 3 goals, pardon me, on 16 shots.
Do you think he can go to the Alexander Georgiev School of Goaltending where he bounces back? Because Georgiev was awful. I think he had a .650 save percentage, which would have made Korpisalo blush. And he bounces back and plays unreal, especially early in game 2, and then the Avs pulled away.
Yeah, that second period for the Avs is what did it up against the Jets. But I will admit, Ross, I'm going to backtrack my comments a little bit. I am a little bit nervous about the Canucks beating the Predators because, Ross, here's the thing. I didn't think Casey DeSmith needed to be that good. Unfortunately, the Canucks only mustered 18 shots on the Preds, and Pettersson,
he's going to have nightmares of that miss.
Yeah, like wide open net, misses it. And then it was another opportunity where Saros was down and Pettersson holds the puck and waits. And instead of firing it over a down and out Saros, who's already like only 5'3" to begin with, so you already got a lot of space if he's down and out, he tries a sauce pass over 2 defensemen's stick instead of just firing that one in. Like, I just thought Vancouver's offense was going to be so good they could outscore their problems. But the thing I didn't really, or at least I overlooked, Ross, is the Predators' defensive structure and their back end and goaltending. They might be able to squeeze out that offense, and they might be able to sneak away with a couple wins if Casey DeSmith can't figure it out here. So that series now is at least interesting. I thought before it wasn't going to be that great, but it's interesting. Heading back to Nashville, tied up.
Awesome hockey so far in the entire playoffs. It really is. And we're seeing our friends down in the States catching the hockey bug and the first round. And this is the difference between the NBA and I think a lot of Americans that just love basketball, and good on you, whatever. They're just trying to peel their way down to the top 4.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 series are going to be unbelievable, very competitive. The way hockey's structured, these first rounds are unbelievable. Even the most lopsided series that are 2-0 right now, you have an overtime win, and 3 out of the other 3 of the other 5 games where 1 goal separates them. Like, there has not been any consistent blowouts in this game. Even the one that we thought was a blowout, where Winnipeg goes up 7-4, it becomes a 7-6 game. Like, hockey's awesome, and the first round of the playoffs really is the best time of year.
Yeah, it's so great. And you know what else is great, Ross? The first round of the play-ins in the AHL Calder Cup run as well.
You wanted tonight's game. You wanted to forget about Willie too? Because that's the other story I wanted to touch on. The Toronto Maple Leafs they're just not saying anything about William Nylander. First guy on the ice at the morning skate, but then he stays on with the scratches after the game. Like, what the heck's going on?
No, but Ross, this is smart. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, like, hardly anyone is talking about this. People haven't noticed or picked up on Nylander not being available yet skating. So the smart thing is don't say anything about it so people can make up stuff and you have these theories. Like, I'm pretty sure the only logical explanation is William Nylander is being suspended by the Leafs for his terrible play at the end of the year. So they're like, you know what? If you're not going to play good in game 82, you're not playing in the playoffs. So that must be what's happening. Smart play by the Leafs not to clarify this.
And Mitch Marner obviously picking up the slack for his teammate who hasn't been able to make it into the lineup in the first 2 games. Your guy, Mitch Marner, sitting on what this playoffs? What's he got this playoffs? No points, -1.
Oops.
Oopsies. Pillzy, any final thoughts? You up to anything today?
I'm going to Belleville, back to Bell Vegas, picking up my Igor Sokolov jersey. I'm going to be in section 104 cheering loudly. It's a 3.5-hour drive one way, so I'm doing 7 hours of driving to be at this game, but I'm fired up. It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
I hope they put on a better show than they did on Family Day for you.
Yes, I also hope that. Ross, maybe Nylander is going to play for the Marlies.
Dude, could you imagine he shows up tonight, him and Matt Murray, as like a verbal meme or that video where it's Shaq and Kobe highlight reel mixtape and it's Murray and Nylander showing up to CAA Arena tonight?
Although, Ross, I'm not too worried about Murray's AHL stats this year. I'm pretty sure he had like a 4 goals against and like an 865 save percentage with the Marlies in a couple of games. So I would welcome Murray to play over Hildeby.
846 save percentage. Those are Mike Condon numbers.
Yep. Yeah, so I'll take me some Matt Murray. I'll just let the boys know. I'll shoot Igor a message. High glove, buddy. High glove.
Hey, it would have been a revenge game. I forgot that he actually played 2 games down there when he got reassigned from Ottawa.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Matt Murray loves Belleville.
Loves Belleville. Hey, so do you, buddy. Enjoy the game tonight. That'll be an absolute blast. Citizens, go say what up to Pillzy. And we will have a video. We'll post it online after the game. Pillzy will give a quick wrap-up, talk some top prospects, and more. It is playoffs for the Senators organization. We'll take it as we get it. And tonight, it is Belleville Sens versus the Toronto Marlies. To watch the game, AHL TV, and you can listen on the Belleville Sens Entertainment Network. It's also going to be on TSN 1200 with our guy David Foote for a more detailed, comprehensive preview of this series. Go check out yesterday's Locked On Senators with David Foote. Monday, we had Igor Sokolov on the show as well. We will get to our exit interviews, more playoff talk, plenty to come here as we lead into May 13th when our draft profile season begins. For today, though, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching and listening, subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and following on social media. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.